The email came through at 4:17 a.m. local time, just after my morning patrol debrief. The subject line read, "Let's be mature about this." Inside were 4 sentences. April was filing for divorce. She'd emptied our joint account. She'd already moved someone named Greg into our house in Colorado Springs, and she hoped I'd understand. That was it. No emotion, no explanation. 13 years together boiled down to 4 cold sentences and a file attachment. Please comment below where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. My name is Master Gunnery Sergeant Cole Ramirez, United States Marine Corps. I'm 44 years old, deployed in Iraq on my 5th combat tour. I've seen IEDs tear through steel. I've dragged friends to medevac choppers under fire. I've stood in towns where the silence meant something was about to explode. But nothing in my career hit me like that email did. Not because I didn't see it coming, but because I had. I closed the laptop, stood from my bunk, and walked straight to the communal shower. Cold water, no words. I put on my uniform like any other day, strapped into my gear, and reported to the comms post. No one asked questions. We all have ghosts back home, some louder than others. But that morning my mind wasn't in the desert. It was 3 continents away in a house I bought with my VA loan, the one with the flagpole I installed by hand. I pictured April standing in our kitchen, the one I renovated during my last block leave, laughing with a man who'd never carried a pack or pulled a tour. It made something in me go silent. Not angry, not even bitter. Just still. The truth is, I'd known. Not about Greg specifically, but about the drift. About the signs. The guarded phone. The late gym nights that never made her sweat. The perfume she never wore around me. When I tried to talk, she brushed it off. Said I was imagining things. Said the distance was just deployment stress. I didn't push. That's not how I operate. In the field or in life. I observe. I wait. I plan. 6 months before this deployment, I made changes. Quiet ones. I opened a secondary account in a credit union April didn't know about. I started splitting my direct deposit. Most still went to our joint account. Enough to keep appearances. But the rest was mine. Protected. I also secured important documents in a rented storage unit across town. Birth certificate, marriage license. The house deed, which was in my name alone, thanks to the VA lending structure. I moved my father's medals, my mother's wedding band, and the title to my truck into that unit. I didn't tell anyone, not even my brother. That's how I handle problems. Not with noise, but with systems. That night after my shift, I typed one word into a reply email. Understood. Then I shut the laptop and didn't open it again until the next morning. My bunkmate, Staff Sergeant Moreno, noticed I was quiet. He asked if everything was good. I nodded once. That was enough for him. Marines don't pry. They wait until you speak. I wasn't ready to speak yet. Not until I had a better picture. Not until I reviewed our bank account myself. Not until I checked the security footage from our ring system back home. April had probably forgotten I installed it. Or maybe she just didn't care. Either way, what she didn't know was that I never start fights. But I finish them. Always. I met April in San Diego just a few weeks after my 2nd tour wrapped. She was working night shifts at the ER, halfway through her nursing residency, smart and fast-talking and full of questions about everything, except the military. She liked the uniform, the structure, the idea of who I was. But she never really asked what it meant to lead a squad through a city blackout in Helmand Province, or how long it took for a firefight to stop echoing in your chest. We married within 6 months. Too fast, I see that now, but back then it felt like something solid. She liked the house I bought with my VA loan. 3 bedrooms just outside Colorado Springs, enough space for kids we never had. She decorated it. I rebuilt the fence. We got a dog. Things looked like a life. But a life built on surface-level understanding doesn't hold when the stress comes. And in a military marriage, the stress always comes. The first few deployments, she sent care packages, wrote letters, said she missed me. The last few, she stopped asking where I was or how long I'd be gone. I'd come home and find new furniture, new routines. She'd say things like, "I didn't know if you'd want that old chair anymore," or "I didn't want to bother you while you were over there." But it wasn't about furniture. It was about space. She was claiming it, making decisions alone. 3 years ago, after returning from a rotation in Kuwait, I caught her looking through our mortgage paperwork. She said she was thinking about refinancing. Asked questions about what was in my name and what was in ours. It didn't sit right. So I started making changes, quiet ones. I opened a secondary bank account under my brother's name. He's a firefighter, steady as they come, and started sending a portion of each paycheck there. Nothing large enough to set off alarms, just enough to build something she couldn't touch. I also secured copies of all our important paperwork, birth certificates, military pension documents, the house deed, and put them in a small storage unit near Peterson Air Force Base. She didn't know the code. She never even knew it existed. The deed, thanks to the VA structure, was always in my name. She never thought to ask about that. The loan process had confused her, and she let me handle it. That oversight would matter later. As the distance between us grew, I stopped trying to bridge it. I'd call home from overseas and she'd be distracted. She'd mention yoga retreats, new friends from the gym, a coworker named Greg who helped her with car trouble while I was away. I didn't accuse. I didn't confront. I observed. April once told me during a quiet argument before my last deployment, I didn't sign up to be a military wife forever. I remember looking at her and thinking, you never really were. By the time I got that divorce email in Iraq, I wasn't shocked. I was ready. Not for the betrayal, there's no bracing for that, but for what came after. I'd already laid the foundation. What she took from me was replaceable. What I'd protected, she never even knew existed. It was a Thursday when I got the second hit to the chest. The first had been the email, cold, efficient, and final. The second came 2 weeks later when I logged into our joint bank account and saw the balance, $17.14. I stared at the screen for a long time, like it might correct itself if I blinked enough. But the transaction history was clear. Over $93,000 moved in small, methodical transfers, all routed to an unfamiliar account under April's name. The withdrawals had started just days after I left for Iraq. The final one had hit that morning. I didn't call her. There was no point. Instead, I checked the mortgage records. 3 months earlier, a refinance application had been filed using my name and signature. Only it wasn't my signature. I know how I sign my R's, tight loops, slight lean left. This version was sloppy, rushed, the kind of thing someone copies from memory. Not from habit, someone who had access to my paperwork. Someone who lived with me. There was a second name on the application too. Greg Hammond. Her friend from the gym. Contractor, apparently. He co-signed as a guarantor. A little digging showed he had 2 DUIs, a suspended license and a sealed fraud charge in 2017. The kind of guy who shouldn't be anywhere near a financial document, let alone my home. I pulled up the login for the security system I'd installed before my last deployment. A gift to myself after a break-in scare. I'd upgraded everything, cameras inside and out, cloud uploads, 2-factor authentication. April had waved it off as overkill. Now I was glad she never asked how it worked. The footage loaded slow on the FOB satellite network, but it came through. Greg's face filled the screen. He was in my house, wearing my hoodie, drinking coffee from the mug my daughter gave me the Christmas before she moved away. I watched him walk my dog around the backyard, settle into my recliner, scroll through his phone like he owned the place. I don't remember getting angry. I remember going still. The way you do in a firefight right before you move. I didn't want to yell. I didn't need to make threats. What I needed was facts. Proof. Leverage. I closed the laptop and went straight to the secure line at the command tent. Called Marcus Wright, a JAG officer I'd known since we were both stationed in Pendleton. He'd helped me once before during a housing dispute with base command. I knew he'd give it to me straight. Marcus, I need quiet legal eyes on something, I said. It's personal, but it's big. He didn't hesitate. I'm listening. I laid it out. The forged refinance, the drained accounts, the guy living in my house. I sent him what documents I had and told him more were coming. This isn't revenge, I said as we wrapped the call. I'm not trying to burn her life down. No, Marcus said. You're trying to stop her from burning yours. That night I lay in my cot under a frayed U.S. flag, listening to the hum of diesel generators and the occasional bark of a dog outside the wire. I thought about the years I'd spent trusting April with my life while I defended something bigger than both of us. And I realized she never understood what that meant. But she was about to learn. I landed at Pendleton under the radar. No welcome home signs, no family waiting, no ceremony. Just the slap of boots on tarmac and a ride from a former corporal who owed me a favor. I didn't go home. I didn't even go to a hotel in my own name. Marcus had arranged a short-term rental under an alias just outside Oceanside. Quiet, no questions. April didn't know I was back. That was the point. The next morning, Marcus picked me up and drove us to a small office building near La Jolla. No sign on the door, just tinted glass and an old marine sticker faded at the corner. Inside, we met our guy, Jason Kwan, former law enforcement, now private investigator, the kind who knew how to dig without leaving footprints. "I've seen this pattern before," Jason said as he laid out photos, documents, transaction histories. "Greg Hammond isn't new to this game. He's got a pattern. Targets military families. Moves in when someone deploys, cozies up to the spouse, then helps them liquidate. Real estate flips, quick sales, cash buyers. He takes his cut and disappears before the fallout." The refinance paperwork April filed matched the timeline perfectly. She and Greg had started pulling equity from the house less than a month after I deployed. On paper, it looked like a standard refi. But there was no inspection, no due diligence, and critically, my signature was a forgery. "That alone is enough to freeze the process," Marcus said. "But we've got more." Jason handed me a flash drive. "Pulled this from your security system logs. April must have forgotten about the cameras." I plugged it into Marcus's laptop. Footage loaded slowly but clearly. There was Greg, again wearing my clothes, walking a real estate agent through the living room. They paused in the kitchen. Greg pointed at the cabinets I'd installed myself during leave. "We'll list at $450, he said. "But if they come in at $410 cash, we'll take it." The realtor nodded. "Can we close in 10 days? Greg smiled. "That's the plan." Marcus didn't smile. "That's the nail." That afternoon, we filed a fraud report with the local bank branch. Marcus also initiated proceedings through the VA to freeze any activity on the house. Because the original loan was a VA-backed mortgage in my name only, April didn't have the legal authority to refinance without my signed consent. With the evidence of forgery, the VA placed an emergency hold on the property. No sale, no cash out, no title transfer. That evening, Marcus submitted the full report to both the Department of Veterans Affairs Office of the Inspector General and the California Department of Real Estate Fraud. We weren't waiting for justice, we were building a net. 2 days later, April started calling. First my old number disconnected, then Marcus's office, he didn't pick up. Then the bank, screaming about authorization issues. By the end of the week, the real estate agent had backed out, citing concerns about title clarity. Greg wasn't answering her texts. Her social media showed passive-aggressive quotes about betrayal and stress. She posted a selfie at the gym. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I watched it all from my laptop, sitting on a balcony with a view of the ocean. I didn't feel anger. I felt gravity, like something inevitable had started moving, and no one could stop it now. Not her, not Greg, not anyone. It happened on a Thursday. Marcus called just past noon. "Turn on the local news." I did. The headline scrolled across the screen. "Man arrested in prescription fraud sting." Below it, Greg's mugshot. A little older looking than I expected. Sweaty, hollow-eyed. The anchor's voice confirmed it. He'd been pulled over driving a gray Chevy Silverado registered under my name. Inside the vehicle, officers found multiple prescription pads reported stolen from a private hospital in San Diego. The name on the employee badge found with them? April Ramirez. I muted the TV and leaned back, letting the ceiling fan hum in the silence. Marcus texted 2 minutes later. "Federal agents are moving. FBI wants a meeting tomorrow." They'd had Greg on their radar for months. He was part of a suspected ring targeting military families. Same playbook every time. Seduce a vulnerable spouse, gain access to VA-backed homes, flip properties, launder funds. Prescription fraud was just a side hustle. They needed proof. I'd given it to them. Jason's footage, the bank documentation, the forged signature, all of it added the missing layer to their investigation. Suddenly, Greg wasn't just a sleaze with a criminal record. He was part of an interstate conspiracy. And April? She wasn't just a scorned spouse. She was an accessory. My voicemail lit up that night. April's voice cracked through the speaker, barely holding together. "Cole, please call me. I didn't know what Greg was into. The police came to the house. They took everything. The bank account's frozen. I tried to reach Marcus, but he won't take my calls. I don't know what's happening." She paused, breathing like she'd been running. "I just need to talk, please. This isn't me. You know that. Please call me." I didn't. The next day I met with 2 FBI agents, Donovan and Patel. No nonsense, both former military. They laid it out clean. Greg had flipped, agreed to a deal. He'd identified 2 other realtors, 1 paralegal, and 3 women involved in similar home sale schemes. April's name came up on financial transfers and electronic communications. She wasn't in the dark. She'd been emailing Greg's contacts about timeline flexibility and clearing the title. The FBI had copies. What happens now? I asked. Depends, Patel said. If she cooperates, we pursue lesser charges, if not wire fraud, mortgage fraud, prescription theft, and conspiracy. It's not nothing. She's scared, Donovan added. And abandoned. Greg's in custody. The cash is gone. The house sale's frozen. She has no viable income. They looked at me for a long second. She's going to come to you, Patel said. They always do. That night the text came. Just 2 words. Please talk. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what not to say. I typed back, contact my attorney. No more conversations, no more closure, just clarity. April responded with 3 more texts over the next 2 days. I didn't read them. Her future would be decided in courtrooms and case files now, not in back seats or borrowed trust. She made her choice, and I had made mine. By the time the news broke nationally, I was already 3 steps ahead. Greg's arrest was just the first domino. His real estate partner, Alan Reese, was picked up a week later in Phoenix. FBI agents executed warrants across 3 states, pulling files, freezing accounts, and flipping witnesses. The whole operation unraveled like a cheap tarp in high wind. 8 women, 4 contractors, 2 shady brokers. Same pattern, same targets. Military families left holding nothing but debt and betrayal. April's name was threaded through dozens of documents. Her emails, her signature, her financial ties. But Marcus made a call on my behalf. He asked for discretion in exchange for cooperation. I wasn't interested in dragging her through a federal trial. I didn't want a front-row seat to her ruin. I just wanted her gone. The offer was simple. Full confession, full restitution, full relinquishment. No stake in the house, no claim on my military pension, no access to the joint accounts, no forwarding address. April signed within 48 hours. The divorce decree came 2 weeks later, stamped and silent. No court appearance, no last words. Just a PDF file and a manila envelope left at my brother's door. I opened it at the same kitchen table where my father taught me how to tie a fishing knot. I signed with a black pen, steady hand and clearer conscience than I'd had in years. Then I called Marcus. Time to transfer the deed, I said. To some it would have been a victory, reclaiming the house, moving back in, repainting the walls and starting fresh. But for me, that place had become a tombstone, a grave marker for something that never should have lived as long as it did. So I donated it. Colorado Veterans Recovery Foundation. They house struggling service members, provide mental health care, help with reintegration. I'd spent years watching good men come back from combat only to fight silent wars at home. If the house could serve them better than it served me, that was enough. I walked the property one last time the day I handed over the keys. The walls still smelled faintly of cedar and cinnamon, April's favorite candle. The backyard garden was overgrown. I didn't take photos. I didn't leave a note. By the end of the week, I was gone. Montana was cold that spring. Snow still lingered on the hills like unspoken thoughts. The cabin sat on 6 acres just outside Helena, log-framed, 2 bedrooms, a work shed, and a fire pit out back. No neighbors in shouting distance, no HOA rules, no memories, just quiet. I bought it with what was left after the house transfer, the reclaimed savings, and a re-enlistment bonus I never spent. Marcus called it a clean break. I called it the first real breath I'd taken in a decade. The VA sent my retirement confirmation that June. 20 years in the Corps, 4 deployments, 2 promotions. 1 betrayal I survived. I spent the first week chopping wood, fixing the porch, and walking the perimeter with my new German Shepherd Scout. No agenda. No one to answer to. Just routine and rebuilding. Some nights I thought about how close I'd come to losing everything. If I'd reacted with rage, if I'd confronted Greg in the driveway, if I'd tried to solve things with fists instead of facts, I'd be the one on the news, not him. But I didn't. I gathered information. I trusted the process. I let the trap spring on its own. The system worked because I didn't let emotion drive the outcome. I planned, I waited, and I walked away when it was time, free and clear. 1 year to the day after I walked off that plane and back into a mess I didn't create, I stood barefoot in the workshop behind my Montana cabin, sanding the edge of a cedar bench. The bench was for a young Marine who'd just returned from a rough first deployment, fractured ankle, fractured marriage, and a mountain of questions about what came next. He was building something with his hands now. I was just helping him get started. The mail came late that day, a small bundle tied with a rubber band, mostly utility bills and flyers. But one envelope stood out, no return address, stamped from Texas. Inside was a handwritten letter, neat cursive on lined paper. No signature at the end, just a name at the top. Rachel Hayes, widow of Corporal Jordan Hayes. She wrote that the FBI had told her my documentation was instrumental in stopping the real estate scam that nearly cost her family their home. That she never knew what was happening until her husband was weeks from returning. That she hadn't believed her lawyer when he first mentioned a larger conspiracy. But when the agents showed her the pattern, my case, the footage, the timelines, she'd cried in the parking lot. "You don't know me," she wrote, "but you saved me. You saved my kids. You saved the only thing we had left." I read the letter twice, then pinned it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like an eagle. Scout padded over, sat at my feet, and looked up like he understood something was different. April reached out for the last time 2 months later. The email was short. "I'm sorry, I didn't know how much I'd lose." No subject line, no attachments. Just 11 words that probably cost her more to write than I'll ever understand. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, those days were gone, but because nothing needed to be said. She made her choices. So did I. The VA hospital in Helena asked me to speak at a recovery group that fall. Just a few words about reintegration. I brought the bench instead. Told them how every cut in the wood, every joint, every grain line taught me patience again. Taught me how to rebuild what couldn't be repaired. Some of the guys started coming by on weekends. We built shelves, coffee tables, one full bed frame. No one talked about deployments or betrayals. We didn't need to. We talked about wood glue and sandpaper grit, and whether to varnish or leave it natural. I started mentoring a local ROTC unit too, high school kids mostly. Wide-eyed, full of questions. I told them stories, sure, but not the ones from overseas. I told them what to watch for at home, how to protect what they build, how to leave with honor when the mission's done. My niece got married that winter. First family event I hadn't missed in years. Wore a proper suit, gave a proper toast, danced with my sister to an old Creedence song we used to play in the truck back in San Diego. I didn't check my phone once. Not because there weren't fires elsewhere, but because none of them were mine anymore. I'd walked through hell, yes. But I'd done it without letting it change who I was. And on the other side, I didn't find revenge or satisfaction. I found something better. Peace, clarity, control, and the quiet power of knowing that when everything burned down, I rebuilt. Stronger, smarter, and on my own damn terms.